Okay, so for today, I just reminded all the students that you need to go back and for uh, preparing for the test on Tuesday, it's going to be a quiz in which one of the questions is going to be uh, worth 13 points. It's going to be a 5 sentence paragraph, and you need to go into the discussion and look at that and review how to write a 5 sentence paragraph that's there in the red folder at the top. That's going to be very important. Pay particular attention to the topic sentence and look at that very carefully. That'll be worth 13 points. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have a practice test. Number your page from 1 to 26. And if you're watching this film, you can pause at any time. All right, everybody, I think we're ready to go ahead and go with the practice test. Thanks for bearing with me for a moment.
I need a couple more minutes.
I need to move now. I'm sorry. I have to go ahead and start. You can number as we're going. Okay, so number 1 on our practice test is the total ownership of a product or service. What is that? What do we call that when there's total ownership of a product or service?
Patent. A patent.
No, that's not correct, but don't call anything out. This is a practice test where everybody is writing down, trying to guess and see what they know, okay? And what we're going to do is don't put it in don't call it out to me out loud. I'm sorry, I didn't give that instruction. Don't call it out to me and don't put it in a chat. That way, when we get to the end of this, you'll be able to figure out when I start calling out the answers, you'll find out what you knew and what you didn't know. And I'm going to do it in a special way so that it'll be a good, perfect little study guide for you. All right. Sorry, I didn't tell you that.
Can you
Okay. So
I can study it?
So number 1, total ownership of a product or service. And it isn't a patent, but don't tell me what it is. Write your answer down. Number 2, new improvements in the steel industry immediately increased productivity in this other industry. So what was the industry that immediately needed steel and increased productivity once steel had been improved and now was quicker and cheaper? So the answer is not steel industry. And I'm sorry I had to move on without you, Nick. I understand you may have needed a little bit more time, but I know I've got to have time. I got to make sure that we have everything done within the class period. Okay, number 3. These people own a corporation, but they don't make the business decisions. They own the corporation, but they don't make the business decisions. Write down who you think these people are.
What number is this? My mom had to talk to me about something.
That's number 3.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Number 4. The need for a dependable source of oil led him to prove it was possible to pump crude oil directly from the ground. So in other words, this guy, I don't know if you want to call it discover, but he's the one who first pumped oil from the ground. He's one of the like 5 or 6 names that we talked about last week. We didn't talk about him as much as the others, but we did mention him.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. And this is a good time to remind everybody, we're trying to do this so that we honestly figure out what we know, So even if you have notes there, let's don't look at those. Don't look at anything so you can get a real good idea of what you really know on your own. So number 4, again, the need for a dependable source of oil led him to prove it was possible to pump crude oil directly from the ground. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to figure out how to get oil out of the ground. Number 5, a period of rapid growth in U.S. manufacturing during the late 1800s. What do we call this time period where there was rapid growth in U.S. manufacturing starting in the late 1800s? I will tell you, I probably said this term about, maybe 100 times just in the last 2 weeks in your class. It's the time period we're studying.
What number is it?
Number 5.
Hold on, I got it all jumbled up. I wrote that is number 4.
It's number 5. I'm going to go back very quickly and go through all 5 of the first ones, okay? I'm going to do it very quickly. But number 1, total ownership of a product or service. Total ownership of a product or service. That was number 1. Number 2, new improvements in the steel industry increased productivity in what industry? We talked about this particular industry for quite a while last week. Number 3, they don't own a corporation. They own a corporation. They do own the corporation, but they don't make the business decisions. Who are they? 4, the need for a dependable source of oil led him to prove it was possible to pump crude oil directly from the ground. Number 5, a period of rapid growth in U.S. manufacturing. What's this time period called? That was number 5. Okay, we're going to move on to number 6 now. The invention of the airplane led to an increased demand for what? The invention of the airplane led to an increased demand for what? For what product? Suddenly people wanted more of this product after the airplane was invented. Number 7, when railroads began being built across the country, what happened? What was the main big thing that happened as a result of all these railroads being built across the country? Now, you may not know what I'm trying to get at. Do the best that you can. We did talk about this, and I made sure you knew it was important. This is going to be a multiple choice and true false test. So this would be a multiple choice, and I'm pretty confident you would immediately spot the answer, but I'm trying to see if you would know it right now, just thinking about it. Number 7, when railroads began being built across the country, this happened. Number 8, business leaders used this concept to justify their great personal wealth. In other words, they said, we're rich and it's a good thing because of this. It was a philosophy. This may be the toughest question on the test. It's what we covered 2 days ago. And it had to do with, I'm going to even give you a hint. It had to do with a concept that somebody noticed that it happened in nature, like with all animals and elephants and stuff like that. Business leaders use this concept to justify their great personal wealth.
What number?
That's number 8. Number 9, Menlo Park, New Jersey, is the research center for this inventor. Probably the most famous inventor of all time. If you don't know, you could probably guess it and get it right. Menlo Park, New Jersey, is the research center of this inventor. And see, when it says the research center, that probably is a big clue that he didn't just invent one thing. He invented lots of things. So he had a research center that was going and researching all the time. That's number 9. Number 10, they built a lightweight airplane that had a small gas-powered engine. They built a lightweight airplane. They invented the airplane, in other words. They got it to fly. That's number 10.
Wait, what kind of engine was it?
Gasoline-powered engine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's the first plane that flew, I should say. Number 11, he invented and patented the telephone. He invented and patented the telephone. This is number 11. Okay, number 12 is a little bit tricky. Owning all businesses in a certain field. Owning all businesses in a certain field. It doesn't mean that you own that entire product or service or industry. So it's a little bit tricky. It's from our discussion 2 days ago. And an example of owning all businesses in a certain field, you wrote this down as an example and you used Rockefeller's name of how he kept buying up all of the oil refineries in his field. That's number 12. "13. Now I think we're going to get to an easier question. I sure expect it will be for y'all smart folks. Iron that has been made stronger by heat and the addition of other metals. Iron that has been made stronger by heat and the addition of other metals.
This is number 13, right?
Yeah, it is number 13. That's right. Number 14. This is a true or false question. True or false? The Sherman Antitrust Act did not stop corporations from growing in size. The Sherman Antitrust Act did not stop corporations from growing in size. True or false?
What kind of act?
The Sherman Antitrust Act. We talked about that when we were looking at the cartoon with the big fat folks in the back and the members of Congress were those little small people sitting at the desk. And the Sherman Antitrust Act was passed to outlaw monopolies and trust. Did it stop corporations from growing in size? True or false? Number 15. The exclusive right to make or sell an invention. What's that called? When you invent something and you want the rights to it, the exclusive right to make or sell an invention.
What number is this?
That was 15. I'm going in order, folks. Maybe you're skipping, I'm not sure. Number 16. Okay, this helped increase U.S. steel production by reducing the amount of time it took. So in other words, this, whatever this is, it made steel quicker and cheaper to make, to turn iron ore into steel. What is this called? It helped increase U.S. steel production by reducing the amount of time it took to turn iron ore into steel. Okay, and that was 16. Number 17, a company or trust that has total ownership of a product or service. I'm just going to tell you, I reworded this. Some of you probably already have this down as an answer somewhere else. It's a repeat. That's my bad. I didn't realize I'd done this. A company or trust that has total ownership of a product or service. I wasn't trying to trick you.
Will you repeat that, please?
Yes, ma'am. A company or trust that has total ownership of a product or service. In other words, you're making all of it. It's all yours. So what do you have? $18. I just want to see if you can do this. Name 3 examples of very successful big businessmen from the industrial age. Name 3 examples of very successful big businessmen. They're the ones that we talked about for quite a while, just on Tuesday, when you wrote a number of notes about them. They're not the ones from the vocabulary. So it's not J.P. Morgan. It's not Joseph Pulitzer. It's the 3 that we talked about for quite a while.
On 18?
Yes, ma'am. Or sir, sorry. Number 19. This is the biggest difference between the telegraph and the telephone. Just in your own words, what's the biggest difference between the telegraph and the telephone? You're just doing this for yourself, so you don't have to write down complete sentences or anything like that. Okay, number 20. He invented the Model T car. He also had the moving assembly line installed in his factory. He invented the Model T car. This is number 20. 21, a business that sells portions of ownership called stock shares. A business that sells portions of ownership called stock shares. What kind of business is that? It didn't have a blue arrow pointing to it Tuesday. I asked you to write it down while I called it out. Number 22. I bet everybody gets this one right. Industry was dominated by this type of business. Is it small, medium, or small, medium, or big business? Dominated, you means they were really running the show. They had pretty much owned most of it, right?
What's
Small businesses. What?
dominated?
After dominated. What's after that?
Industry was dominated by this type of business.
Yes, sir.
Is it? And I just told you your choices: small, medium, or big business. All you have to do is write down small business, medium business, or big business as your answer. 23. This was invented by a German engineer in 1876. What was invented by a German engineer in 1876? I know we're studying American history, but it's really important that this person invented this.
What number is that?
23. It was the largest oil company in American history. What's the name of that largest oil company that John D. Rockefeller founded?
Could you repeat number 23? I did that before. I just need you to repeat it.
23 was what was invented by a German engineer in 1876.
Can you repeat 21?
21 was a business that sells portions of ownership called stock shares. What kind of business does that? What do we call those businesses that sell ownership called stock shares? Okay, let me get back now to the last one I read was 24, largest oil company in American history. And the last one, no, I'm sorry, we said 26. There's 26, so there's two more. Number 25, he rose to power in the steel industry and later became the richest man in the world. We really only talked about one person. Even though we talked about steel an awfully lot, we only talked about one owner of an, I shouldn't say owner, but leader of a steel company. Who is it? And then the last one, as big businesses grew, Americans and governments became more and more concerned that these businesses were, and in your own words, come up with some things that people began getting concerned about when these businesses were so huge and kind of taken over, basically. As these businesses grew, Americans and the government became more and more concerned that these businesses were, and there's actually going to be about three answers. And remember, because this is multiple choice, if you understand this after we go over it, you'll do great on the test. You'll get this answer right. You should get all of them right.
Can you repeat number 25?
Yeah, and this will be the last time I'm going to have a chance because I've got to make sure we have enough time to review everything and also see the photographs that I promised at the end of class. Number 25, he rose to power in the steel industry. Who are we talking about? He became the richest man in the world. Okay, before we review these, I need to mention a couple things to you. Number one, when I said that this is what's on the test, I meant it. Did I read out the exact test questions to you? No, I did not. I read out certain key parts so that you would understand what is the concept. And so with these answers and knowing these concepts, you'll be able to see the questions on the test and do a fabulous job, even though these aren't the exact word for word questions, okay? So here's how we're going to review these questions. When you get one right, when you get something right, you can put a check mark beside it or just leave it alone, however you want to do it. But if you get something wrong, listen carefully. I've done this a long time, and I know this will help you. If you get it wrong, be honest and put an X beside it. And then when I read out the answer, write down that answer and circle it. So that when we're finished, anything that's circled, that'll be a perfect study guide that oh, I got to go back and look at that. Oh, I gotta make sure I know what that means. Okay, so everybody follow me. If you get it right, you don't have to do anything, or if you want to put a smiley face, whatever. But if you get something wrong, you do two things. You put an X beside it, and you write the correct answer and circle it. So at the end, I will call out, like if you missed 10, I'll tell you what your grade would have been on this practice test. It's just for you to kind of get a sense of where you were today. But the good news is the test is 4 days from now. So I know you're going to do fabulous if you follow my directions. Okay, here we go. Number 1, the total ownership of a product or service. What is that, everybody or somebody?
Monopoly.
Monopoly is correct. Monopoly, number 1. So if you missed it, put an X and write the word monopoly. When you circle that, that'll let you know, oh, I got to go back and make sure I know what a monopoly is. Study the definition. It's in your notes. It's also in the Let's Talk PowerPoint that is in your Schoology. Number 2, new improvements in the steel industry immediately increased productivity. With what company? With what industry?
The railroad industry.
I just heard the right answer. Good job. The railroad industry. Remember, after the Bessemer process and it got cheaper, those railroads started connecting everywhere, didn't they? They needed lots of steel, and they got it. Next, number 3, who owns a corporation, even if they don't make the business decisions? Anybody?
I don't know if this is right, but I'll put the state board.
That's a good guess, but it's not correct. Anybody else before we move on? Stockholders. They're the ones who buy the stock and they hold on to it. So corporations raise money by selling stock. And those people who buy the stock, they're called the stockholders. That's number 3. If you missed it, put an X, write stockholders, and circle it so you know you got to go back and study that definition. Number 4, the need for a dependable source of oil led him to prove it was possible to pump crude oil from the ground.
Rockefeller.
It's actually not Rockefeller.
Edwin Drake.
He came up. Edwin Drake is the correct answer. Very good. Edwin Drake is your answer. Please write that down and circle it if you missed it. Rockefeller came along and oil was already being pumped out of the ground. So Edwin Drake had already invented. Edwin Drake was the one that learned how to pump it from the ground so that Rockefeller and people like him could come by and take that oil and start refining it. It's a good guess. Be careful though. A period of rapid growth in U.S. manufacturing during the late 1800s. What is that? Everybody should know that.
Second Industrial Revolution.
Thank you. Perfect answer. Good deal. Second Industrial Revolution is the answer for number 5.
I was like, everybody should got this one right.
I hope so, because I know I said it a bunch of times. Number 6, the invention of the airplane led to a demand in what?
Crude oil.
Gasoline.
Okay. It sounds like it could be oil because airplanes do need oil, but they need a whole lot of gasoline, don't they? Gasoline, it takes a lot of gasoline for those engines to get that plane up in the air and to keep it there until you're ready to come down. So when they really started making a lot of airplanes, they needed a lot of gasoline. So that was number 6. Number 7, when railroads began being built across the country, what was a big important change that happened? Anybody remember what I was talking about? Okay, I'm not going to wait because I need to tell you the right answer. Rapid growth of cities. Remember that when trains, those tracks went, when they started building factories, where did they put the factories? They put the factories near those where the train tracks were, and usually where they intersected. And because those were the businesses started being built, well, people didn't have cars back then, and they didn't have a way to get to work unless they lived within walking distance. So rapid growth of cities, people started moving to the cities by the railroad tracks.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes,
my
yes.
internet stopped working. But what number are you on?
This is number 7.
7. What was the answer again?
Rapid growth of cities.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm going to help you with number 8. The business leaders, they use this concept to justify why they deserve to be wealthy. It was called social Darwinism. Survival of the fittest is what I'd ask you to underline. They were the fittest. They were the ones who took over these industries, so they deserved all the money they got. They were the ones that survived all the predators, just like the animals in the jungle. Social Darwinism. Number 9, Thomas Edison is Menlo Park was the research center for Thomas Edison. I bet a lot of people got that one and the next one's right. Number 10, they built a lightweight airplane with a small gasoline powered engine. That would be the Wright brothers. Number 11, he invented and patented the telephone. And that is Alexander Graham Bell. Bell invented the telephone. Owning all businesses in a certain field. This was kind of tricky. Anybody think they got it? Nobody willing to guess? I know somebody has it right.
Horizontal interrogation.
That's exactly right. Horizontal integration. That's like Rockefeller buying all of the other oil refineries. He was buying and taking over businesses that way. The opposite of it is vertical integration. That's what Carnegie did. He decided he wanted to buy all the things that his company needed to make steel. So he was buying the mines and the coal fields and then the the railroad tracks to get it all up to his steel mill. So that's vertical. That's when you're buying everything in the steps of the process. Owning all businesses is horizontal integration. May want to look at those
I didn't
terms.
get number 11.
11 was Alexander Graham Bell. That's who invented the telephone. Number 13, iron that has been made stronger by heat and the addition of other metals.
Steel.
I think steel. Yeah, I hope everybody got that one right.
Yeah.
That's about all we've been talking about sometimes, huh? $14, and hang on one second. Okay. 14. Did the Sherman Antitrust Act stop corporations from growing in size? It didn't. So this sentence said the Sherman Antitrust Act did not stop corporations from growing in size. That's true. It tried. They tried to outlaw, but it was too weak. The language was very weak, and it didn't work. So the answer to number 14 is true.
And 13 was the Bessemer process.
No, 13 was steel. 13 said, well, iron that's been made stronger. What's iron that's been made stronger and added metals to it? That's just steel. Okay, 15. The exclusive right to make or sell an invention.
Patent.
A patent. Very good. Patent. Okay. Now somebody, I think, I don't know who it was because it didn't show your name, but you said Bessemer process. Look at your answer for number 16. It helped increase U.S. steel production by reducing the amount of time it took to make iron ore into steel. That's the Bessemer. See, that's the Bessemer process. That's where it reduced the time, making it meaning quicker, and it also made it cheaper. So 16 is Bessemer process. 17. This is one. 17 is where I accidentally put the same basic thing in there twice. A company or trust that has total ownership.
Monopoly.
And that's right, monopoly again. Yep.
Was that supposed to be trust or something? Like when we took our notes yesterday? Well, the other day?
I didn't put trust in here. I don't know if I just overlooked that or not. I'd go back and look at trust anyhow. But if you'll remember, that's where there's like a board of directors and they're over more than one company. That's the only difference with a trust. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Number 18, name 3 examples of very successful big businessmen.
Carnegie.
Yeah. Carnegie. Go ahead.
Rockefeller and Stanford.
That's it. That's the 3 we've been looking at quite a bit. Carnegie for steel, Rockefeller for oil, and then Stanford for railroads, and then becoming given the money for Stanford University.
Will you repeat that again? I didn't hear it.
Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Stanford. Those are the 3 big businessmen that we've been studying.
Number 18.
Yes, that's it. All right, number 19. When I was asking for the biggest difference between the telegraph and the telephone, there's a number of differences, but the one that's the biggest difference that what I want to know is that the telegraph sends only written messages, right? The telephone sends sound, but the telegraph sends only written messages.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Or ma'am. What?
I put telegraph you had to write. Is that fine or?
Yeah. So that'll be fine because it's going to be multiple choice on there's going to be a lot of answers for this. But
Yes, sir.
the main thing you need to know is the telegraph sends only written messages.
Okay.
The other things having to do with that question really aren't true on the test, I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
He invented the Model T car. I bet a lot of folks got Ford.
Henry Ford.
That's right, because he's still around. A lot of these car companies are they're named after people that invented them, right?
Yes, sir.
21, a business that sells portions of ownership called stock shares. What do we call that kind of business?
Vertical.
No. Let me help you. Corporation. It's a corporation that sells. It's not a family business that sells part of their business. It's
What number?
corporation. Number 21, corporation. So if you missed it, just a reminder, put an X beside it, write the word corporation and circle it, and make sure you look over the definition of what a corporation is. It's in your notes from a couple days ago. Number 22, industry was dominated by this type of business in the Industrial Revolution. I think everybody should have known it was big business, right?
Yes, sir.
And what was invented by, this is number 23, what was invented by a German engineer in 1876? Did anybody know that? The answer is gasoline powered engine. Gasoline powered engine. And the reason we study that in American history is because gasoline basically, we learned how it came from oil in our country. Then they used that in Germany. But then after he had that gasoline powered engine invented, why we took that and started inventing and building cars and motorized boats, planes. So that invention was obviously very important for our country, wasn't it?
I'm glad because I wouldn't have to want to paddle a boat down the river or up it either.
Oh my gosh, and here I've got a kayak. I didn't even think about that. Okay, number 24, largest oil company in history. Well, what is
Standard
it?
Oil Company.
Standard Oil Company. Very good. Standard Oil. 25, he rose to power in the steel industry.
Carnegie.
Carnegie. It's amazing to think he donated money for over 1,000 libraries to be built.
I wish I had that much money.
Yep. And he was still the richest man in the world probably afterward. 26. I'm gonna help you with this. Listen carefully, everybody. As big businesses grew in the second industrial age, Americans and the government became very concerned that these businesses were too powerful. Write down too powerful. Or I mean, check your answers. If you have something like too powerful, unfair practices, there's three things I'm looking for. Too powerful, unfair practices. It's almost like they were cheating. They were not doing the right things. And the third, they reduced competition for low prices. Now that means they've eliminated all the other companies. They can raise their prices.
I put with
Okay.
takeover.
Well, but this is how they would take over, though. They were too powerful. They were unfair, and they had gotten rid of the other companies that would keep prices low. Powerful, unfair. Now prices could rise. Okay, so what I want you to do is look over, be honest, count up your X's, and see how you're doing. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. I'm going to stop my recording for the folks here, and then we're going to come back and we will watch. Excuse me, not watch, but we will look at the photographs that are in today's folder. I think you're going to really enjoy those. So hold on, and I'm going to help you further.